Hey everybody. You know, I was going to talk about this last night, except my battery died, and I wanted to let my camera cool off just a little bit before I did another video here while I'm waiting for my mom and my nephew to come out of Kaiser here, because my mom went to go get her mammogram done. Um, anyway, I wanted to talk about the news that was released yesterday by Microsoft, and that is the fact that all those restrictions, region locks, DRMs, stuff like that, that they have announced that they are doing away with that when it comes to the Xbox One. And a lot of people are looking at this as great news. That finally Microsoft has realized they basically, and excuse my language when I say this, they basically fucked up. Because according to people like Alpha Omega Sin, the sales for the pre-orders were declining. They were going downhill. They weren't exactly at what they wanted. So they pretty much, I guess because of this, realized, okay, why is our pre-sales not working? And I guess when they heard how fans reacted to the whole, oh, this is what you could do, this is what you not can do, blah, blah, blah. Pretty much, I guess what Alpha Omega Sin said, it pretty much changed their minds. It's like, oh shit, the only way we're going to sell a bunch of this stuff is if we do away with those things that we mentioned at the beginning and just primarily focus on what made our other Xbox 6s successful, and that's just leaving it as it is. I think the situation with Microsoft is when they first announced the Xbox One, that the primary focus for it was making it more than just a game console. That they wanted to make it more than what it was. Basically, they wanted to make it, as some people looked at, as their own version of the DVR. Basically saying, making the primary focus being nothing more than interacting it with your cable box, interacting it with your cable, doing this and doing that. And as good as all these features, as good as all those new features were, basically by focusing primarily on that, they basically misjudged what they were going to do and brought it, in my opinion, just basically allowed themselves to be focused more on what was going on and basically allowed themselves to be forced into putting these restrictions that obviously they thought at first was a good idea, but wasn't. And thank God they've seen the light. But, like Alpha Omega Sin, and I'm sure Angry Joe himself is going to do a video on this, but just like Alpha Omega Sin has said, and I agree with him, I too am going to be skeptical. I too am going to wait until everything is settled and see exactly where it goes from here. Because just because they said this, and this is why Alpha and myself and a lot of others are skeptical, that just because Microsoft has said, oh, we're doing away with all those restrictions we talked about, just because they're doing the right thing and finally just letting the Xbox be what its predecessors, like the 360 and the original Xbox, basically allowing it to be what made those successful. Basically a lot of people, like I said, myself, Alpha Omega, I'm pretty sure Angry Joe and a lot of others are going to be skeptical because just because they say they're doing it doesn't mean they might follow through on it. Because sometimes a company will say certain things just to draw you in, and then all of a sudden, after a while, they'll be like, oh, by the way, we've decided to bring back some of those restrictions. So we're going to do this and 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 this, and we're going to update your thing, and you won't be able to play your Xbox unless you do the update. And that's what a lot of people are skeptical of. They're skeptical as to the fact that Xbox might go back on their word. But we'll just have to wait and see. Now the only question is, are we going to have to download a patch, an update right off the bat to make all this happen? That's what Alpha Omega Sin was wondering. Are we going to have to download an update to make sure all these restrictions that have been put into place are removed? Or are they going to take their time, go through all the Xboxes they're currently working on, all the Xbox Ones they're currently working on, and basically remove all these restrictions before release? I can tell you this, if they're planning for a November release, a November, December release, a holiday release, then they got their work cut out for them, because if they're going to sell a lot of units, they got to definitely start working their asses overtime to make sure all these restrictions, all these DRMs, all this crap that they put in place when they first announced the Xbox One is removed. They'll basically be working basically 48-14, if you will. Not 24/7, but 48-14. So, me honestly, I think it's great news. I think it's good news. It's great news that they finally, realizing the mistake they did. Because I think the primary focus when they announced the Xbox One was basically making it more than the game console. Making it more, as Angry Joe put it in his rant, more about television than about games. So we'll just have to wait and see exactly what goes from here. I think it's great news that all the restrictions, the region locks, the DRMs, the online connect situation is all basically out the window for right now. But again, like Alpha Omega Sin has said, and I agree with him, and I'm sure a lot of people also agree with him. I'm sure Angry Joe would agree with him. I'm sure James Wolf, the AVGN, the Angry Video Game Nerd, would agree with him. That we just gotta wait and see exactly what takes place afterwards. And I'm sure Bolt Matrix is going to agree. And I'm sure Review Tech USA is going to agree. And I'm sure GameStop is happy about this and they're agreeing. But just like everybody else, I'm sure everybody that I've mentioned, myself, Alpha, Bolt Matrix, Angry Video Game Nerd, Mike Patel, GameStop, everybody is going to, Review Tech USA, they're all going to be basically waiting. So that's all I'm going to say, and talk to you later.